All right, folks, welcome to episode 318. This is According to Sam. Hope you guys had a good weekend. Really wanted to pick up where I left off in the last podcast and what I've been talking about in the past couple of podcasts, telling the story of how the Obama coalition ended up being the Trump coalition and talking about what's going on with the Democratic Party. I had a few more things that I wanted to share. I'll probably pick that up on Friday. But today we're going to get into what took place over the weekend in Los Angeles. I'm going to break some of that down for you. It really is the same story, telling the story of how the Obama coalition became the Trump coalition and the downfall of the Democratic Party. What we're going to talk about today is definitely part of it, but it's not what I wanted to do today. But over the weekend, if you haven't been living under a rock or on the moon, you saw what happened in the images from Los Angeles, very reminiscent of what we saw in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter protests. And the reason that I say it's the same story, what we saw over the weekend is nothing new. It's nothing new. And what we saw over the weekend, you saw the Democratic Party doubling down on defending illegal immigration, which is one of the major reasons that they lost in 2024, which is one of the major reasons that that the Obama coalition became the Trump coalition. It's one of Trump's biggest issues is this issue of immigration. And you saw them doubling down on it over the weekend. Let's get right into this. I have a lot to share with you guys today. We're going to venture back into the past. The very first clip that I'm going to play is a clip of a rally that Trump did when he was first running for president in 2016. And if you don't remember, everywhere that Trump went in 2016 to campaign, there were violent protests from the left there to meet him and his supporters, particularly in California. I say all the time that it's unfair that Trump was not allowed to campaign like like any other candidate in the state of California. Every single place that Trump went to try to campaign in the state of California, he and his supporters were met with violence from the left. This was the event that he had in San Jose, but this happened in Orange County. This happened in San Diego. This happened everywhere that Trump went. But take a listen to this clip.
We begin with several developing stories here on a Friday night. First, the violent and bloody clashes outside a Donald Trump event. Protesters attacking Trump supporters. Those supporters were attacked as they left the convention center in San Jose overnight. Some punched, some chased down and beaten. Others had bottles thrown at them.
Right. Violence from the left.
Time ago, Donald Trump addressing the violence. ABC's Tom Llamas is in.
All right. So violence from the left when all over everywhere Trump went. You remember in Chicago that year, it got very violent. It was violent in New Mexico, violent in Arizona. Everywhere Trump went to campaign, the left, he was met and his supporters were met with violence. And then Trump wins in 2016. He wins that election. This is on the day that he was inaugurated on January 20th, 2017. And this is, again, violence from the left. So this takes place all over Washington, D.C. This was not a peaceful transfer of power. This was a very violent transfer of power from Barack Obama to Donald Trump. There was violence throughout the campaign, at all of his campaign events. His supporters were attacked, violence from the left. And then on his inauguration, violence across the country. but particularly there in Washington, D.C., very violent left-wing violence. And then we get to 2020 and Trump's last year in office. We're dealing with COVID, and then George Floyd, dies while he's in custody after resisting arrest with fentanyl in his system. And then you have the violence that sets off from the left, starts in Minneapolis, but goes from Minneapolis to Washington, D.C. for some reason, and then goes to the White House. But it goes city to city, violence all over the country from the left. Violence. This is violence and vandalism. Violence and vandalism from the left. This is vandalism. This is looting. They went looting all over the country, along with the violence. This is at the White House. They went to the White House, attacked the White House, attacked police. The president had to be rushed to his underground bunker on the night that they attacked the White House. And then they also tried to burn down St. John's Church there in Washington, D.C. But this is all in response to George Floyd's death. Violence from the left. Violence. And this is what I was telling you. I've told you guys many times about how they use the peaceful protests to give cover for the violent protests. That's what they do. Is that, and this is one of the things that one of the congressional representatives from Los Angeles said about the violence this weekend, is that it was peaceful. Yes, because there are people there that are peaceful. Those people that are peaceful are giving cover for the violence, and they know the violence is happening, but they're using the violence and they're using the peaceful protest to give cover for the violence. Same thing they did in Ukraine during Euromaidan. I told you that they had all the peaceful protesters there protesting in Euromaidan, but then they had the violent Nazis there that were doing violence. The peaceful protests give cover for the violence. It was color revolution. That's what Black Lives Matter was too, color revolution. This is St. John's Church across from Lafayette Square, right across from the White House that they tried to burn down. Violence from the left. Violence from the left. Left-wing violence. This is 2020, and this is nationwide. That's in D.C. That's the night that Trump had to be rushed to his bunker. The next night, he comes out with the National Guard, clears the square, and uses the National Guard to quell this violence because they're being violent, tried to burn down the church. That's why he walks over to Lafayette, walked over to St. John's Church. He holds up the Bible in a statement to believers that, no, I'm not going to let them burn down your monuments, your institutions. They were tearing down monuments all over the country. We all remember that violence all over. Here's more from D.C. that night. Violence from the left.
There were times overnight when Washington was in chaos. There were running battles between protesters and police through the streets.
Chaos. Violence from the left. This is all in 2020. So just to keep track. So, violence from the left all through, Donald Trump campaigning, everywhere he went in 2016. Violence from the left on the day that he was inaugurated. Violence, left-wing violence. And then 2020, when they're trying to get rid of him, they're using the George Floyd violence to get rid of him in 2020. Violence. This is some images from my hometown here in San Diego during the George Floyd protests. This went nationwide, everywhere.
Protests turned violent on the streets of La Mesa tonight.
Turned violent and looting. Looting and violence and vandalism from the left. This left. All right. So then all that happens through all of the summer of love through 2020. We have the election in November. You still have more violence after that, leading up until January and January 6th. And then you have some right-wing violence on January 6th. And we've all seen the images that they wanted to show you during the January 6th commission. We've all seen these images. This is right-wing violence. It's January 6th. It's an isolated incident. This wasn't going on nationwide.
I want to warn everyone.
We're going to get to you in just a moment, Thompson. We're going to get to you in just a moment. But this wasn't nationwide. This wasn't going from city to city. This wasn't right-wing violence whenever Hillary Clinton shows up to a different city to campaign. There weren't right-wingers there ready to pounce on her. There wasn't violence from the right wing that was moving all over the country, burning, looting. This is an isolated incident at the Capitol on January 6th, and this is right-wing violence. And in 2021, when this happens in January of 2021, this is like the end of a entire 6 months of violence that started in May because of George Floyd. There had been 6 months of left-wing violence, and then you have this incident of right-wing violence. And it's pretty chaotic. I mean, these are all the images that we've all seen that they showed you during the commission in the 9/11 commission. That was only Democrats on the commission. There's a reason why there were no Republicans on that commission. We're going to talk about that here in a moment. But these are some of the images you haven't seen. These are images of Capitol Police opening doors for people, letting them in the Capitol. Capitol Police just haven't seen these images from that day. This isolated incident of right-wing violence that is being used now 5 years later, that anything that the left wing is doing, that they're going to reach back to this isolated incident. So remember that right-wing violence? You had that right-wing violence. Dude, these are images that a lot of people haven't seen, that they didn't show you in the commission, because the commission was only Democrats and two turncoat Republicans that were censored by the party, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, but it was only Democrats, and Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger were put on the commission by Nancy Pelosi. That's never happened before. Usually the Republican leader puts people on the commission. You don't have the opposing party putting people on the commission from the opposing party. That makes no sense. You haven't seen these images. You haven't seen they didn't show you the images of people just lollygagging around in the Capitol with Capitol Police there, right there, just standing there. They're not asking them to leave or anything. They're opening doors for them, you know. But we've all seen this, you know, this violence. Where's this is the violence right here that Representative Bernie Thompson, because he was the chairman of the commission. He put this post out over this weekend because Trump federalized the National Guard to deploy in Los Angeles. We've seen all this stuff, but I didn't show you this stuff.
Dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume who led the violent insurrection to overthrow American democracy. For these crimes, Chansley was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison, far more time than many violent criminals now receive. What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment? To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building.
They opened the doors for a lot of people.
According to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside.
Got a guided tour.
Every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides. Here's video of Chansley in the Senate chamber. Capitol Police officers take him to multiple entrances and
just walking him around the building
for him. We counted
the shaman, Q shaman.
Who were
look at these guys.
Distance of unarmed.
So they didn't show you any of this in the commission, and there's a reason why. Is because this isolated incident of right-wing violence is a propaganda tool for Democrats. That's why they every time you see left-wing violence and people are criticizing left-wing violence, which there's a lot more than this isolated incident, they always draw back to January 6th and say, oh, but January 6th, you know, it's a problem on both sides. Well, if it's a problem on both sides, then why wasn't there a congressional select committee, a commission to look at all the violence on the left wing and this isolated incident of violence at the Capitol on January 6th. And that's why there were no Republicans on the select committee, the commission to look into January 6th, is because Republicans said that, yeah, let's look into what happened on January 6th. Let's have a bipartisan commission, but let's also in this commission look at all of the left-wing violence. Let's also investigate all of the left-wing violence that we have been seeing over the years too. Let's investigate that along with the isolated incident of the right-wing violence. Yes, Republicans said, yes, we will investigate this isolated incident of right-wing violence at the Capitol. We want to investigate that. We want to know what happened. We want to know why the National Guard wasn't there. We want to know why the fence wasn't put up. We want to know everything that happened with January 6th. Yes, we want to get to the bottom of that. But let's also get to the bottom of what happened on Trump's inauguration and all the left-wing violence. And Nancy Pelosi said no. No, we're not going to look at any of the left-wing violence. We're only going to investigate the right-wing violence. This isolated incident of January 6th is what Nancy Pelosi said that she only wanted to look at. And that's why no Republicans except Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney took part in this sham. We know there's millions of questions that commission to investigate January 6th did not answer. They didn't answer the commission of why someone gave an order to Capitol Police not to use their most sophisticated tools for crowd control. New York Times, Capitol Police told to hold back on riot response on January 6th, report finds. Despite being tipped off, they were tipped off. They got intelligence that Congress itself was the target on January 6th. Capitol Police were ordered. They were ordered, and if you do the research, they were ordered by the assistant to the deputy chief. I believe it was Yogananda Pittman who gave this order for the Capitol Police not to use their most sophisticated tools for crowd control. So there's all these questions about January 6th, this isolated incident that Democrats keep using to compare to left-wing violence. It's hilarious. That they're using this. Yes, which was a tragic event. There was a lot of people hurt. There was a lot of violence, but this is one isolated event. This is what, I have tons of violence from the left, attacking American citizens, attacking police, setting fires, vandalism, looting. I got tons of that. You got an isolated incident that is surrounded by questions about why the Capitol Police let people lollygag in the rotunda without asking them to leave, why Capitol Police opened doors for people and let them in the building, why orders were given, why the Q shaman was given a guided tour, why orders were given not to use your most sophisticated tools for crowd control. Why? But this is the isolated incident that they keep drawing on. Representative Benny Thompson, who was the chair of the committee to look into January 6th, that sham committee, he put this out over the weekend after Trump had federalized the National Guard to protect federal buildings and federal agents in California. Why would Trump need protection for federal agents and federal buildings in California? Because California is violent. California has been committing violence going back to when Trump was running in 2016, and he would come to California to just campaign, and his supporters were beaten, set upon everywhere they went. And the local municipalities in San Jose, when this event happened in San Jose and Trump's supporters were beaten, the mayor in San Jose gave a stand down order. The police would not help Trump supporters. This is going back to 2016. So why would Trump, think that he needs the National Guard to protect his federal agents now? But Representative Benny Thompson says Trump refused to call the National Guard during January 6th insurrection, but now he's sending them to LA to respond to protests against immigration raids. No troops for rioters attacking democracy, but a whole show of force for people demanding justice. Who does this guy think that he is? Who do you think you are, bro? Just lying. And you put this tweet out with the lie like this that is easily refutable, that Trump refused to call the National Guard during January 6th. That's an absolute lie. Trump offered the National Guard. He offered that, bro. First of all, we have 3 separate branches of government. I've explained this many times, that the executive branch can't just send the military to the legislative branch without a formal request. There has to be a formal request. He can't even deploy the National Guard into the city of D.C. without a formal request. But Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., actually did make a formal request for the National Guard, but she requested unarmed guards. So just for crowd control and traffic control is what she said. And she demanded that they be unarmed. Why did Muriel Bowser demand that Trump use unarmed National Guards when she requested National Guard for crowd control and for helping with traffic? Why did she want unarmed guard? Because back during the Black Lives Matter violence in Washington, D.C., when they attacked the White House and forced the president to his underground bunker, that next day, like I told you, that Trump came out with the National Guard and he cleared the square. He cleared the square with less than lethal tools, cleared the square in front of the White House, cleared Lafayette Square, and got all these protesters out using the National Guard. And Muriel Bowser, who is the mayor of D.C., was mad that Trump had used the National Guard to clear that square. So when she requested National Guard on January 6th for crowd control and for traffic, to help with traffic, she requested that they be unarmed, demanded that they be unarmed. So that's what happened. That when the violence happened at the Capitol, and then they're calling the National Guard all frantic, and they want these unarmed guards to be redeployed to the Capitol. The administration's like, no, we're not going to send unarmed guards to the Capitol in the middle of this chaos. You should have ordered the guard before for the Capitol. You should have requested the guard before the riot on January 6th, and they were offered to you. I posted this under Benny Thompson's post, and I asked him, why are you lying? Why are you lying? This is the chief, or this is the General Walker, who's the general of the D.C. National Guard. He testified to the Senate that he and the chief of Capitol Police, Chief Sund, who was the chief of Capitol Police on January 6th, that he and Chief Sund are friends. And he said that I talked to Chief Sund on the Sunday before January 6th, because we're friends, is what General Walker says. And he said that I asked Chief Sund, are you going to be requesting the National Guard assistance on January 6th for the joint session of Congress? And it would only make sense. Why would you think General Walker would ask Chief Sund that? Because there have been months of violence, 6 months of violence going back to January because of Black Lives Matter, all this violence. Of course, you would suspect that maybe there's going to be violence on January 6th. So being a friend, General Walker, who is the general of the D.C. National Guard, asked his friend, Chief Sund, are you going to be requesting National Guard? Are you going to need our assistance? Don't you think you're going to need our assistance on Thursday? And this is what Chief Sund told General Walker. Take a listen.
I talked to Chief Sund on Sunday. I talked to him Saturday and Sunday. We talk. We're friends. Mm-hmm. I've known him for a long time. So on Sunday, I asked him, are you going to request D.C. National Guard help? And if you do, I need it in writing. It has to be formal because the Secretary of Defense has to approve it. He told me he was not allowed to request the support. And I asked him if he wanted me to share that, and he said, no, I can't even ask you for the support, is what he told me.
I am not allowed to ask you for support. I am not allowed. Chief Sund told him that he is not allowed on the Sunday before Thursday. I am not allowed to request National Guard support. I don't know why Benny Thompson doesn't know that General Walker testified to the Senate that Chief Son told him that he's not allowed to request the National Guard before the riot on Thursday. Armed National Guard that could have protected the Capitol. That's why it wasn't that Trump refused to call the National Guard. The chief of Capitol Police, who's responsible for protecting the Capitol, wasn't allowed to request the National Guard. Why is that? So you're telling me that you got orders being given when the Capitol Police is getting intelligence that Congress is the target? You got people giving orders for the Capitol Police to stand down, and you're telling me that the chief of Capitol Police is telling his friend, who's the general of the DC National Guard, I'm not allowed to request the National Guard? Why don't you look? Why didn't your committee, your sham committee, why don't you guys look into that, Benny Thompson? So this is a sham. This is an absolute sham. This is a conversation that Tyra Palmieri, who comes from Legacy Media, but now she's got a YouTube show, a podcast, which all these guys, Chuck Todd, all these people are doing podcast shows now who come from Legacy Media. The reason people left Legacy Media and went to alternative media because they were sick of these Legacy Media talking heads lying to them. And now all these Legacy Media talking heads are coming to alternative media telling people lies. I mean, if you turned off Legacy Media because of their lies, why would you be listening to these liars on YouTube or in any other platform? But Tara Palmieri is one of these Legacy Media talking heads, which I believe that a lot of these people are plants, that they're coming from Legacy Media into alternative media to spread disinformation. Anyway, she is very popular and has a very a big show and it is growing. She's interviewing Scott Jennings here from CNN, and they get into a discussion about violence. Who does more violence, the left wing or the right wing? Where the left wing violence versus right wing violence. And I want you to listen to this back and forth.
The left has a problem with violence. It is in its heart right now.
I don't think it is only the left. I mean, you have literally seen people on both sides committing violence.
Both sides.
I think the problem is not the left. I think it is the extremes on both sides of the party.
Extremes on both sides.
That is what's happening. Like they're the loudest voices, whether the leaders want them or not, and they're the ones who tend to be the most violent. I don't think that's fair to say it's only the left.
And it's not only the left.
But why is it happening? Why do late night comedians go on TV and encourage or coddle or give lip service to this vandalism of what went on with Tesla dealerships and so on? Why are there so many prominent people?
People didn't get hurt.
I totally get why Luigi Mangione was murdered. Like, why?
People didn't get. Listen to what she's saying. People didn't get hurt when they're firebombing Tesla dealerships. When they're keying Tesla cars, it's just vandalism. It's just vandalism. People didn't get hurt on Trump's inauguration. Just the Bank of America got hurt. The Starbucks got hurt. You know, that's just property damage. That's not a big deal that people didn't get hurt. Although a lot of people did get hurt. A lot of officers got hurt at Trump's inauguration in D.C. A lot of officers got hurt. A lot of people got hurt when Black Lives Matter attacked the White House during the George Floyd Summer of Love. So a lot of people are getting hurt with the left-wing violence, but she's saying that people didn't get hurt when they firebombed Teslas and keying Teslas. That's just property damage. That's what she's saying.
Want them or not, and they're the ones who tend to be the most violent. I don't think that's fair to say it's only the left. I mean,
why? But why is it happening? Why do late night comedians go on TV and encourage or coddle or give lip service to this vandalism of what went on with Tesla dealerships and so on? Why are there so many prominent people?
People didn't get hurt.
I totally get why Luigi Mangione was murdered. Like, why?
Yes, someone died on January 6th. Her name was Ashley Babbitt. Many other Trump supporters, several other Trump supporters died, had heart attacks and other things on January 6th. Yes, many people died on January 6th. You're right. Ashley Babbitt was shot.
People didn't get hurt.
I totally get why Luigi Mangione was murdered. Like, why?
I'm not for vandalism, but like
It's more than that. They firebomb these things. Like it's obviously
dangerous, but it's happening on both sides.
Both sides.
What person on the right is committing violence today?
Both sides.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, when you're in power, you don't tend to be the ones that are doing that. But I think after they lost the election.
What about when Biden was in power? What violence did you see? That right-wing violence did you see when Biden was in power for 4 years? Give me an example. Please give me an example of what you saw during Biden's 4 years where right-wingers were committing violence, doing violence like the left wing, like doing stuff like this, attacking Biden supporters and committing vandalism. Please, Tara, give me an example during the Biden administration. What is she talking about?
The right is committing violence today.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, when you're in power, you don't tend to be the ones that are doing that. But I think after they lost the election in 2020, there was a mob and a person died, and it was a riot at the Capitol. It was crazy.
It was a terrible day, and it should not have happened.
It was a horrible day.
And
it's not the only example.
My calendar, and it was
it's not the only example. Give me another one. Give me another example. She says, and that's not the only example. She brings up January 6th, and that's not the only example. Give me another example.
And it should not have happened.
It was a horrible day.
And
it's not the only example. Let me check my calendar,
and it was 5.5 years ago.
Can we also talk about the fact that someone broke into Nancy Pelosi's house and violently beat up her husband?
You're saying that homeless drug addict is a conservative?
She's talking about this guy breaking into Nancy Pelosi's house in San Francisco. In San Francisco, this homeless guy, this deranged person did I mention it was in San Francisco? This is here's her second example. January 6th and some homeless, deranged guy who breaks into Nancy Pelosi's house in San Francisco. These people are crazy. There is no equivalent to this left-wing violence. You are insane if you think that it's on both sides. And using this isolated incident with very questionable elements around that isolated incident that happened 5 years ago. What Scott is talking about, them firebombing Teslas and attacking Tesla dealerships and what just happened over this weekend and attacking Jews, burning Jews in Colorado, killing Jews, a Jewish couple in front of the Jewish Museum, the Hamas protests on the campuses, what they did at the Union Station in D.C. when Netanyahu was here. I mean, these are recent events. You have to go back 5 years to find some isolated incident to compare, to say that it's on both sides. And even if it is on both sides, why was there not a congressional committee that bipartisan that Republicans and Democrats could have served on together to look at all the violence? If it's on both sides, Tara, why did Nancy Pelosi and Democrats only want to isolate the investigation and the commission to only look at this isolated incident of January 6th? This is ridiculous. These people are ridiculous. All right, so let's talk about what happened this weekend in Los Angeles. And what happened this weekend in Los Angeles didn't just start in Los Angeles this weekend. This is some video from here in San Diego from May 30th. So this is 2 weeks ago, and this is ICE in San Diego attempting to do their job and make arrests. And this is what happened in San Diego. It's like 2 weeks ago. People were saying that what Trump did over this weekend, that there was in reaction to the fight that he had with Elon Musk, and he was, doing ICE raids in LA, trying to divert attention away from that. It's ridiculous. Before any of that happened, 2 weeks ago, this was ICE in San Diego being prevented from doing their jobs by citizens in San Diego who are attacking them, stopping them from doing their job. It's completely unsafe. They're outnumbered. And the local police here in San Diego and the state police, the highway patrol, would not assist these federal agents that are trying to do their job in San Diego 2 weeks ago. Here's some more. Let's get some more. I got some more from San Diego. This was a couple of days later here in San Diego. A different, I think this is a different situation where they're going out to make an arrest, and the residents, the citizens, come out and attack them. They're completely outnumbered. They're getting no backup from local police, from state police. This is 2 weeks ago. I'll listen to a little sound because they're actually yelling, "Shame, shame."
Back up! Yeah, back up! Back up!
So they're completely outnumbered. It's completely dangerous from them. They have no backup. They're not being supported by the local police and the state police. This happened 2 weeks ago in San Diego. All right, so this is LA. This was on Friday. This was the arrest that they were making in Paramount, in LA on Friday. And then again, the residents come out holding Mexican flags, waving Mexican flags, attacking the bus that is transporting the people they have arrested. No backup. Again, same thing that was happening in San Diego. No backup from the LAPD. No backup from the state police. They're completely outnumbered, and they're being attacked by the citizens there in Los Angeles.
Of Alondra, near where that Home Depot is, where all of this started this morning. So I'm under the impression right now that either this bus is for those agents, the Border Patrol, or it's to make arrests. Oh, looks like the bus is moving, even though protesters are trying to stop it.
So they're blocking the bus.
So we don't know if this is reinforcements, if this is to help with arrests.
So people, no backup from local police, no backup from state police, people throwing things at the bus, and then they started attacking the cars of the ICE agents, setting fires, federal vehicles being destroyed, attacking Border Patrol. I do see some LAPD vehicles here, so perhaps were there, but they were not. They were not able to. I mean, they didn't have enough of them. I tell you that. This is the guy that was throwing heavy stones at federal building or federal vehicles as they're leaving, and I mean, this is completely dangerous. This is going on in California. Completely no control. And these are federal agents, federal vehicles. They're not getting any support. This is what was going on. So this was on Friday. This is before Trump federalized any National Guard. There's no National Guard deployed at this time. There's no National Guard even talked about at this time. This is just federal agents trying to do their job in Los Angeles now. They're getting the same results where the citizens are behaving the same and attacking them, antagonizing them. It's completely unsafe for these federal agents. Same thing that happened in San Diego. Now it's happening in Los Angeles, and nobody's talking about National Guard. National Guard's not even a conversation when this is going on Friday. Okay. And in doing so, they were all waving the Mexican flags. The Mexican flags were extremely prominent all weekend. And there's a reason for that. If I did an entire podcast on Reconquista. I think it's episode 280 or 281, somewhere around there. I looked it up yesterday, but you have to understand Reconquista. People are like, well, if they want to, if they're waving the Mexican flags, if they love Mexico so much, why don't they go back to Mexico? No, what these people are saying is that this is Mexico. That's what they're saying. That's why they're waving the flag. They're not going back to Mexico. What they're telling you by waving these flags is that this is Mexico. That's what they're telling you, that they're already in Mexico. That's what the flags are about. Reconquista. I recommend you go back and you listen to the podcast I did on Reconquista. But the flags were prominent all weekend as they are attacking federal officers, attacking federal buildings, attacking federal vehicles with no backup or very little backup, if any. The local police, Karen Bass, ordered the LAPD not to assist federal agents, not to step in and help federal agents. And Gavin Newsom, the governor, also told his highway patrol and his police force not to assist federal agents. Don't back them up. Don't help them. This is before anybody is talking about the National Guard. This was on Saturday night, and it spilled over from Friday night to Saturday night. You can see this mob. This guy was streaming, and this is a mob that's going down to a federal building. This is a federal building here where they're holding the people that they've arrested, and the mob is going down to attack the federal building. There's no National Guard there. It's just federal officers, federal people, and they're outnumbered. It's completely dangerous. They're getting no support from local police.
Looks like this is the new hotspot. See everybody walking down here? I think
they've already all the graffiti. This is all the federal building.
Oh my God! Look at all the graffiti on the wall.
This is what they're doing to the federal building. The graffiti's not a big deal. You're going to see something that is a big deal here.
Forever graffiti. Yeah, I think they're pulling up right in front.
So this is a mob that walks over to the federal building and they start throwing throwing explosives at the federal building and the agents that are outside in front of the federal building.
See, that's why everybody started running.
They're completely outnumbered. It's dangerous.
They don't want to be a part. They don't want to get.
So they're completely outnumbered. It's dangerous, and these federal buildings and these federal agents.
They're throwing more in there. Oh, they're throwing a bunch. See all that smoke? I can see them lighting it and throwing it in there. Oh shit!
So this is on Saturday night.
Oh, dude!
This is on Saturday night.
No. This might be cops throwing tear gas.
So this is on Saturday night. They're attacking the federal buildings. They're mobs of LA residents, mobs going down to the federal building, throwing explosive at federal officers, attacking the federal building. They have no support. They're sitting ducks, just out there trying to protect the federal building. They're getting no support from the local police. They're getting no support from the state police. And then this is what Karen Bass just says on CNN today. Take a listen.
I have to say that if you dial back time and go to Friday, if immigration raids had not happened here, we would not have the disorder that went on last night. I will tell you that
if the federal officers were not in my city doing their job, if they were not here, arresting people for being here illegally and doing what they're commissioned to do, if they were not here enforcing the law, then this would not happen. This is what she says. The mayor, another black woman. I tell you what, these black female mayors are not giving me more, much confidence in black female leadership. I tell you that. I tell you that. Yeah, that she's saying that the reason that this happened is because the federal agents, they're doing their jobs. then you don't have any control of your city, lady.
I have to say that if you dial back time and go to Friday, if immigration raids had not happened here, we would not have the disorder that went on last night. I will tell you that it is peaceful now, but we do not know where and when the next raids will be. That is the concern, because people in the city have a rapid response network.
Wow.
If they see ICE, they go out and they protest. And so
protest. They go out and they protest. Lady, they're setting cars on fire. What are you talking about? There's all kinds of vandalism going on, throwing explosives at agents. What are you talking about? And she says that this happened because of the ICE agents doing their job, that they're going out and they're enforcing the law, and that's why this happened. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. Well, they're enforcing the law in New York. Why didn't you hear about any of this going on in New York? ICE agents are not only doing their jobs in California, in Los Angeles, they're doing their jobs all over the country. They're everywhere. Like Tom Homan said, that they're going to do this job. They're going to do what needs to be done, and they're doing this everywhere. They're in New York doing this. New York was a former sanctuary city. It's not anymore. Who knows what's going to happen? Who wins this mayoral election and what happens after that? But right now, there is no sanctuary in New York. It was brilliant for the Texas governor and other governors to send, these busloads of migrants to New York, because the mayor of New York understands that this is a huge problem. He's come out and he said that this is going to bankrupt our city. So in New York, ICE agents are there and they're doing the same job that they're doing in California. And they're actually getting the same response from the citizens in New York. The same response that the ICE agents got in San Diego and they got in Los Angeles. They're getting that same response from the citizens in New York that are coming out, attacking them, that are coming out, trying to prevent them from doing their job. The only difference is that in New York, the mayor of New York has instructed his police officers, the NYPD, to assist the federal agents, to protect the federal agents, to not allow the residents and the citizens of New York to attack the federal agents. It's a much different response. This is New York. Take a look.
Protect and serve, right? Protect and serve. Following orders. Following orders, right? Just following orders. What these racist ass police. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace.
And it's funny because if you look at the protesters, they're all wearing the Hamas scarves. So, is this about, just causing chaos, for these Marxist Hamas supporters? We saw the Palestinian flag several times over the weekend, along with the Mexican flag in Los Angeles. So the Palestinian protesters are there protesting with the people protesting ICE. So it's kind of like this conversion of left-wing violent activists. Doesn't matter what what are we protesting. We're protesting Israel or we're protesting ICE. It doesn't matter. We just want chaos. That's what they want, because they're Marxists. Essentially, that's what this is about. It's about Marxism. But the LAPD is there, or the NYPD, not LAPD, the NYPD. You see the NYPD here. So Mayor Adams, Mayor Adams instructed the NYPD to assist federal agents in doing their jobs. So you don't have the same thing that's going on in Los Angeles going on in New York, because the mayor there in New York has decided to assist the federal agents in doing their jobs and back them up and not let the citizens attack them. So you don't have there's no need for the National Guard in New York because the mayor is assisting them. The reason why we need the National Guard in Los Angeles is because Mayor Bass and Gavin Newsom wanted to offer no support to the Trump administration and the ICE agents in doing their jobs. And this is what Homeland Security put this post out on Saturday after getting the assistance from Mayor Adams in New York. It says outside the federal law enforcement building in New York, more than 150 rioters erupted to interfere with ICE immigration enforcement operations. Thankfully, unlike in Los Angeles, the local police department quickly responded to the riots. So far, NYPD has made 5 arrests. Secretary Noem's message to rioters is clear. We will not stop or slow down. But they're putting out the message that, look, we're getting a totally different response from the local police in New York that are assisting us, that are not allowing us to be sitting ducks to these violent citizens that are trying to prevent us from doing their job. In Los Angeles, something totally different is going on, that the mayor has told the local police there to stand down. The governor has told them to stand down. So we're sitting ducks. That's why Trump federalized the National Guard. That's why he sent the National Guard in. Because he needed the National Guard to protect his agents to do their job. And the National Guard, I watched all this stuff yesterday that was going on there in Los Angeles. And they were downtown. They were at the courthouse. It was mostly California Highway Patrol and NYPD. I saw no National Guard involved in anything yesterday because the National Guard was only deployed to protect the federal buildings, the same federal buildings that they were attacking and throwing explosives at the agents at, those federal buildings. And these federal buildings, it's it, where they were attacking federal agents at these federal buildings. That's the only place where the National Guard was deployed. The National Guard wasn't down there deployed downtown in front of the courthouse where they were burning cars and all that violence you saw yesterday. There was no National Guard. The governor is saying that the reason that that's happening is because of the National Guard. The National Guard wasn't there. The National Guard were at 2 separate federal buildings. They were held up at those federal buildings. There was nothing going on there at those federal buildings, ironically, because the National Guard was there. And there was tons of stuff going on at those federal buildings before the National Guard showed up. There was vandalism, graffiti, explosives being thrown at the agents before the National Guard showed up. But yesterday, the National Guard was at these 2 federal buildings. There was nothing going on at the 2 federal buildings. The only place there was violence and cars and being destroyed and vandalism was downtown, and it was only the LAPD and California Highway Patrol. This is a supercut of the media. Like, they need more help discrediting themselves. But this is a supercut of the media talking about how peaceful everything was. Hold on. There you
go. The LA County Police say that they have it under control. Carrying the flag is not illegal, as you know. What did happen in 1992 was so different from what we're seeing now. I mean, that was a real riot.
Because they kept saying that Gavin Newsom and Bass both, we had everything under control. We didn't need Trump to federalize the National Guard and bring the National Guard in. We had everything under control, is what they're saying. What are you talking about? We have video, lady. We have video, Newsom. What are you talking about? We see how everything wasn't under control. Things were crazy out of control. They were so out of control that's why we needed the National Guard to come in, because things were out of control. You didn't have everything under control. You think we're all stupid?
And from what we're seeing now, I mean, that was a real riot.
Video after video has shown that these agents are the ones provoking protesters and also making up, aggression by these protesters that later video shows people were not aggressive.
We are having an administration that's targeting peaceful protests, people that are there to protest. Peaceful. The president is sending the National Guard
because he doesn't like the scenes. He doesn't like the scenes of people peacefully protesting.
The unrest is isolated. LA is home to millions of people. Most of them are having a normal day here on Sunday.
You know, you've heard reports that there are riots on the streets of Los Angeles. That is not what's happening across the city of Los Angeles.
Governor Newsom's right. There wasn't anything like a riot happening on Friday, Saturday.
We just witnessed a protester thanking a National Guardsman for his service here in California.
LAPD, by most estimates, had this under control last night.
No, they had it under control. I mean, these are the same people that said Biden was sharp. These are the same people that told you Biden was sharp as a tack. I swear. All right, so what's really going on? I have about 5, maybe a little bit over 5 more minutes to explain to you guys what's really going on. Why is the state of California, Governor Newsom, Karen Bass, why are they protecting illegal immigrants in this state? Why are they refusing to assist the president of the United States in doing their job in deporting illegal immigrants? And it's about power, people. Take a listen.
Brad, what are you thinking?
Well, we got to this moment because California has a sanctuary policy. The state law forbids local law enforcement from cooperating with, or local government from cooperating with immigration enforcement. We have immigration laws that govern the entire land, and California is willfully ignoring them. California's left-wing politicians set this up. If California had long been cooperating and helping enforce immigration laws all along the way, this would not be.
It's not the whole state. You do.
It's the whole state.
This is jurisdictions. There are certain towns that do. Yeah, but there are certain. But there are certain towns that absolutely have.
There's certain towns, but the California Highway Patrol and the major metropolitan cities like San Francisco, like Los Angeles, like San Diego, that's where they congregate the illegals, and those municipalities do have a policy of a sanctuary. It's a sanctuary state. It's absolutely a sanctuary state. But I want you to listen to what she says.
Federal authorities.
Shouldn't they all?
You know, this is part of the issue that is always interesting here is when Republicans want to talk about states' rights. It's about states' rights when it is something that
states' rights. States' rights. She is invoking states' rights. That's what the Democrats invoked in the 1800s. Which we're getting ready to get into this, but this goes back to the Democrats in the 1800s when they wanted to keep their slaves before the Civil War, invoking states' rights. We have states' rights to keep our slaves. That's what South Carolina said when they succeeded. That's what the South said when they succeeded, that states' rights, we want to keep our slaves. That she's invoking, the Democrats have not changed. They're invoking states' rights. And this guy is absolutely right that this has been a policy, this policy of a sanctuary state has been in place for over 20 years. I've lived here. I've watched it happen. I've watched what these guys did. I watched what Jesuit Jerry did. Jesuit Jerry was the governor of California before Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom was his lieutenant governor. And for 20 years, these guys have had a policy of open borders in sanctuary state, and it's about power. The policy that they put in place to have open borders in sanctuary cities is about political power. The same political power that the southern states were fighting for in the 1800s, what the Civil War was about. The Civil War was about representation. All these people keep talking about democracy this and democracy that. Well, what kind of democracy are we? We're not a direct democracy. We're a representative democracy. This is about representation. And that's what the Civil War was essentially about. After the Louisiana Purchase, after the Treaty of Hidalgo, that got the Western states, that made the Western states part of the United States, and the United States started to expand west. The South wanted the states that were to the west, the new states, to be slave states, because they understood that if those were slave states, then they were going to give them more political power and representation in Congress, in the Senate, and give them more electoral votes. So they would easily be able to elect a president that identified with their pro-slavery and the issues that were important to them in the South. But from the beginning of the creation of the United States, the slavery issue was an issue, and they had to have compromise. They had several compromises. They had the Great Compromise. They had the Connecticut Compromise, and they had the 3/5 Compromise, where the Southern states, they did not want to join the Union and be part of the Union unless their slaves could be counted towards representation. And the Northern states didn't want them to be counted towards representation. So they came up with the 3/5 Compromise, that the slaves who couldn't vote, weren't part of the franchise, but still were counted in the census that determined the representation of Congress, the makeup of Congress, how districts were drawn, the Electoral College. This was about power. And this is what's going on in California with all these illegals. No, the illegals can't vote, and they're not part of the franchise. But when the census comes around every 10 years, they're being counted in the census, and that determines how many congressional districts California gets, how many electoral votes California gets. This is about power. And quite frankly, I'm offended as a descendant of former slaves. I am offended about the fact that illegal aliens in this country, they get accounted 100% towards representation in California, but former slaves were only counted 3/5 of a person. That offends me. I saw this video today, and this woman breaks down exactly what I was just telling you. I have one more clip after this, but I want you to listen to what she says.
Totally missing the point on these LA raids or blue city immigration raids. They think, oh, they're going after these innocent people and day laborers waiting outside of Home Depot. I'm listening to the news right now. I'm hearing it all. You guys are all missing the point. This is about the census. This is about how many representatives blue states get in the House of Representatives. That is not based on U.S. citizen numbers. It is based on a total
head count.
Body count. So if you want a Republican president to never be elected ever again, and we're essentially in a one-party system, then you're pro-illegal immigration, whether they're peaceful or not, because it will provide more representation in our government based on a body count census. So just to be clear, this is not about, oh, this was a gangbanger or this was your housekeeper. It's not about that. You guys, take a step back. Look at the bigger picture. Remove emotion. This is about the future of democracy. This is about representation for U.S. citizens, because what these sanctuary cities and these sanctuary states are doing is they're inflating their body count numbers by giving illegal immigrants incentives, whether it's free housing, free healthcare, free food, cell phones,
to come in.
They're doing this to attract bodies to their state, so it gives them more representation in government.
Yeah, and they count them in the census. It doesn't matter if they're citizens or not. They're counted in the census, and it gives them the representation. She is 100% right. This guy explains it as well, and they're both right. Take a listen.
This here's a good question. So the comment, I'm dumb. Illegal people influence representatives. Why? Explain it to me like I'm 3. Very good question, by the way. Let's not make fun of this person in the comments. Okay, so you've got the House of Representatives, which is based on population size, and then you've got the Senate, which is 2 senators per state. So to keep it simple, the House is meant to represent the population, and the Senate is designed to represent each state equally. That's why you have 2 senators per state. Now, how do we decide who becomes president? It's based off electoral votes. So when 2 candidates are running against each other, right, the candidate that gets to 270 votes at a minimum wins the election. Now, the question is, how do they decide how many votes each state gets? The way they decide is they add up the number of representatives plus senators. So again, to calculate how many electoral votes each state gets, you add the number of representatives in the House plus the number of senators in the Senate. That gives you the number of electoral votes. Now, how do they calculate the population of each state to then allocate the number of representatives?
The head count on the census.
They do that with the census every 10 years. But here's the thing. The census doesn't only count citizens or people here legally.
It counts heads.
It counts all people in the states. So by California allowing millions and millions of illegal people to stay in their state, they actually increase their census numbers, which then increases the amount of representatives that they have in the House.
He's absolutely right. And that's what it goes back to. And again, I'm offended that we allow illegal immigrants to count as a whole person when former slaves who didn't get to vote, who weren't part of the franchise, were only 3/5 of a person. It's 100% criminal, what they're doing. And we need to fight this. We need to support the president in fighting this. And I'll get back into some other stuff in the next podcast. I hope you guys have a great week. But thank you guys for listening. I'll see you guys on Friday.